We are definitely living in an AI-powered world now. Tools like large language models, LLMs, things like ChatGPT, they're not just changing how we work or learn.
No, it feels much bigger than that.
Exactly. They seem to be reshaping our daily interactions with information at a really fundamental level. But the question we want to dig into today is, how deep does that change actually go? What are these tools really doing to our brains, to our ability to think critically, to reason?
That's a huge question and a really timely one. It's exactly what a fascinating new research study tried to answer.
Okay.
So today we're taking a deep dive into what they found. We're exploring the subtle differences between using LLMs versus, say, traditional web searches, or just using your own brain when you're learning or writing.
Right.
And the goal for you, the listener, is really to understand the cognitive impact of these tools you're probably using more and more, and maybe think a bit more intentionally about how you use them.
Okay, let's unpack that. So this deep dive, it's based on a solid study, carefully put together. It looked right into the cognitive side of these different ways of working with information.
Right.
They measured like brain activity, but also things like how much people felt they actually owned what they wrote.
Yeah, that sense of ownership is interesting.
For you listening, this isn't just theory. It's about seeing the maybe subtle but significant shifts happening in your own mind as we all navigate this tech.
So to really get at these effects, the researchers set up this really clever experiment. They had 54 participants,
Okay.
and they carefully split them into 3 groups. Group 1 used an LLM, specifically ChatGPT in this case.
The LLM group,
Exactly. Group 2, the search engine group, they used traditional web search like Google.
standard stuff.
Yep. And the third group, the brain-only group, they had 0 external tools, just their own knowledge, their own thinking power.
Wow, okay. And what did they have them do?
Essay writing. But not just any essays. They used real SAT prompts. Those questions designed to make you think critically. Like, does loyalty mean unconditional support? Or is a perfect society even possible? That kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, those require some thought.
Definitely. And each person wrote multiple essays with a tight 20-minute limit for each one.
Oh, pressure.
Yeah. And that task, essay writing under pressure, it was chosen specifically because it really forces you to think critically, synthesize information, be a bit creative. It's perfect for showing the pros and maybe the cons of each method.
Makes sense. It really puts the approaches to the test.
But they didn't stop at just looking at the essays. It was much broader. They used EEG headsets to measure brain activity while people were writing.
Real-time brain data. Cool.
Yeah, collecting neural data as it happened. Then, afterwards, they did detailed interviews. Asked people about how it felt, how much effort it took, how they felt about what they wrote.
Getting the subjective experience, too.
Exactly. And they also ran sophisticated natural language processing, NLP analyses on all the essays, looking really closely at the language, the structure.
Yeah, okay. Covering all the bases.
They really were. Trying to answer key questions. Are the essays different depending on the tool?
Yeah.
How does brain activity change? Does using an LLM affect your memory for what you wrote? Or that sense of ownership we mentioned?
All right, this is where it gets really interesting. The study found something that honestly probably doesn't surprise many of us using these tools.
What's that?
LLMs tend to seriously cut down the immediate cognitive load.
Makes it feel easier.
Yeah, exactly. The mental effort just feels way lighter. It's quicker, almost effortless sometimes to get an answer or generate text, like your brain's hitting the easy button.
But, and this is the big but, right? That convenience seems to come with a significant cognitive trade-off.
Okay.
The research strongly suggests that while LLMs lighten the load right now, that very ease might really reduce our critical thinking abilities over time and lead to less engagement in the deep analytical thinking that's needed for real understanding. It's what researchers call cognitive offloading.
Right, I've heard that term. You're basically outsourcing the thinking.
You got it. Not just the task, but the thought process behind it.
And the brain activity data showed this clearly.
Oh, absolutely. It's quite stark. The brain-only group, the ones relying solely on themselves, they showed significantly stronger neural connectivity.
Meaning their brains were working harder or differently?
Both, kind of. Stronger connections across all the measured frequency bands. Alpha, theta, delta waves. Now, simply put, these waves are linked to different brain states.
Yeah.
Alpha with focus, theta with memory and creativity, delta with deep thought, complex processing.
Okay.
The fact that all these were firing strongly, lots of communication across different brain areas, it points to a brain fully engaged, doing the heavy lifting.
Orchestrating the whole process internally.
Precisely. It signals higher cognitive load, yes, but also stronger executive control, deeper creative thinking. They were really building ideas from scratch.
So what about the LLM group's brains?
A very different picture. A lower overall neural connectivity profile. It really looked like their working memory wasn't being taxed as much.
Because the AI was doing some of the work.
Exactly. Some of that human thinking, the planning, was effectively offloaded. Their frontal cortex, the brain's CEO, basically seemed to be acting more like an editor.
Integrating and filtering the AI's output rather than generating.
You've nailed it. Not that their brains were off, but the job shifted. Less creation, more supervision, less composing the music, more conducting the orchestra after the main parts are written.
Okay, so LLMs make it feel easier, might even boost engagement initially because the answers are tailored. But what about the long game? What about memory?
Yes.
If the AI is doing so much work, do you actually remember the information? Do you internalize it?
This is frankly one of the most striking, maybe even a bit alarming findings.
Okay.
LLM users perform significantly worse when asked to quote sentences from the essays they'd just written.
Wait, from their own essays?
From their own essays. In the very first session, 83%, a huge majority, struggled, and none provided completely correct quotes.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. And this difficulty didn't really go away in later sessions either. And neuroscientifically, this lines up perfectly with the reduced low-frequency brain activity they saw in the LLM group.
The activity linked to memory.
Exactly, particularly in areas crucial for memory consolidation. Semantic encoding, the deep processing that embeds meaning into long-term memory.
So it's like, if the AI does the hard work of generating the text, your brain might just skip the deep encoding step needed to truly learn it.
That seems to be the implication. Like someone highlighting a book for you, you see the highlights, but you didn't do the work to identify them, so it doesn't stick the same way.
Whereas the brain only and search groups had to wrestle with it more.
Correct. And they performed much better on recalling their own work. That struggle, that effort, seems crucial for memory.
Which connects to that idea of ownership you mentioned earlier.
It ties in directly. In the interviews, the brain-only group, overwhelmingly, they felt full ownership, a real connection to their work.
They built it themselves.
Right, but the LLM group, it was much more varied. About half still claimed full ownership, sure, but quite a few actually said they felt no ownership at all.
That raises big questions, doesn't it? About intellectual connection, responsibility, maybe even our sense of self when AI is heavily involved. If you don't feel you own it, did you really create it? Or learn from it?
Profound questions, for sure.
And beyond the individual brain, the study also looked at the content itself. This idea of echo chambers. Does AI push us towards similarity?
That's a major concern, and yes, the findings were pretty clear here too. Essays generated with LLM help within the same topic were statistically more similar to each other.
More homogeneous.
Exactly. Much less variation than in the essays from the brain-only or search groups.
Why is that?
Well, think about how LLMs work. They're next token predictors. They're optimized to produce the most probable sequence of words based on their massive training data.
So they give you the average internet answer, in a way.
Sort of, yeah. They generate likely, coherent text. But that optimization for probability can unintentionally filter out diverse or unusual perspectives and reinforce dominant narratives or biases present in the training data.
Compared to a search engine, which might give you lots of different, even conflicting links.
Precisely. Search is designed ideally to show variety. LLMs often synthesize a single, probable response.
So the risk is the AI gives you a neat package, but it might be subtly narrowing your view, guiding you away from wrestling with diverse perspectives, which is key for critical thinking.
That seems to be the potential downside. It's a shortcut that might bypass some essential cognitive exercise.
And did human reviewers notice this?
They did. Human teachers who had no idea which essay came from which group were generally more skeptical about the uniqueness and structure of the LLM-assisted essays.
Interesting.
They even felt they could often spot a kind of distinctive LLM writing style, regardless of the student or topic.
Okay, but get this. The researchers also made an AI judge, right?
They did. And here's the kicker.
Let me guess. The AI judge loved the AI essays.
You got it. The AI judge consistently scored the essays higher on things like uniqueness and quality than the human teachers did.
That's ironic.
Totally. The AI judge couldn't pick up on those stylistic fingerprints that the humans noticed. It failed to recognize the lack of individual voice.
So AI can produce stuff that looks good to other AIs, maybe hits the right metrics, but lacks that that human spark, originality.
That's what it suggests, a
Yeah.
potential gap between AI-defined quality and what humans value as genuinely creative or insightful.
So wrapping this up, what this deep dive really shows is this kind of double-edged sword, isn't it?
It really is a complex duality. On one side, LLMs clearly offer huge benefits: efficiency, speed, personalized answers. They're changing information access for the better in many ways.
Undeniably powerful tools,
Absolutely.
but that convenience, that ease, it comes with these potential cognitive costs.
Right. The reduced mental effort, while nice in the moment, could potentially, over the long haul, chip away at our critical thinking, our analytical depth, even our memory.
Because our brains adapt, right? If we consistently let the AI do the heavy lifting, the planning, the synthesizing, our brains might just stop investing resources in those skills. Use it or lose it.
That's a concern. The brain streamlines based on demand. If the demand for internal planning decreases because we outsource it, the internal capacity might follow.
Hmm.
And the study actually hints that maybe a better model is one where we delay using the AI.
So,
Let learners or workers first engage their own brains, do the initial struggle, the thinking, before bringing in the AI to refine or expand. That might give you the best of both worlds: the tool's efficiency and the strengthening of your own cognitive abilities.
so it's about being intentional, thinking when and how to use these tools, not just using them for everything by default.
Exactly. Finding that balance between letting the tool help you and making sure you're still exercising your own mind.
Hmm.
Augmentation versus atrophy.
So the big takeaway for everyone listening, in this age of amazing AI assistance, how do we make sure we keep flexing our own mental muscles for critical thought, deep memory, real creativity?
It's the crucial question we all need to ask ourselves.
And here's one last thing to chew on, completely outside the cognitive effects we've discussed. Did you know an average LLM query uses about 10 times more energy than a standard Google search?
Wow, 10 times. I hadn't realized it was that much.
Yeah, it's a pretty surprising environmental and resource cost that's also part of this bigger picture. Another factor to consider as we decide how much we rely on these incredibly powerful but also resource-intensive tools.
Definitely food for thought on